and welcome back to Sharon Cullen Art. Today I'm going to be doing a review on the Arteza watercolors. As you may have heard from my previous videos, Arteza sent me watercolors, paper, and a set of 24 gouache to review and to give you a coupon code, which will be in my description if you'd like to go find it there. They sent me these when I had asked for a chart regarding the light fastness, pigments, all of that, and they asked if I'd like to have some of these products, and I said, well, sure, that'd be great. I never expected to get this many. So this is a set of 60 watercolors. I'm going to swatch them all today for you so that you can see how good, bad, or indifferent you feel about them. The one thing I did want to point out, well, first of all, there is another video for the gouache. I will post that at the end of my video in a box for you, and also in the description box below if you'd like to go and see the review I did on the gouache. I was actually pleasantly surprised by that. Now, the watercolor, I haven't touched them yet. I just took the plastic coating off of it yesterday, and they come in these tubes. And like I said, there's 60 of them. They go all the way to the bottom here. I'm gonna swatch them quickly in time lapse so that you can see them, and this isn't going to take us all day, and then I'm going to review what I've learned about them, and we'll do a quick painting at the end for you to see how they work in a painting. My one concern I had, though, was regarding the transparency of the watercolors. Out of all of these watercolors, out of all of the 60 watercolors, I went through their chart listed on here, and they listed as 15 being semi-transparent, 43 being fully opaque, and 2 transparent watercolors. 2 transparent watercolors. Watercolors is sought after for its transparency, its luminosity on the paper, its ability to retract light and give it that beautiful quality that it gets. Now, 43 opaque colors is a bit much. And personally, even before touching it, if I had seen a chart like this, I would never buy them. But let me say, if you are a crafter and you're only going to be using these for crafting, then I think they're wonderful. So go for it. These would definitely be considered student quality. And I hate to give a poor review without even touching them, and I should probably just stop right here. But only 2 transparent colors. I would say don't waste your money. You don't need 60 colors. Now, granted, I have a lot of colors in my watercolor repertoire, I guess you could say, but I've acquired those over a period of about 6 or 7 years. And some of them I've deleted from my preferred palette because I don't care for them, and others I have added. So it takes time. But when I started out, I only had maybe, I think, 10, 12 colors, and then it went up to 18 colors while I was in a class at a local college, and then from there it grew. And so I just wanted to point that out so that you know that. And if you're going to spend some money on watercolor, you are better off getting a set like I got for my doodle and sketch right here. A set of 6 this would be all you would need. That's all you need. There's a red, yellow, blue, green, violet, and burnt sienna. And you don't even need the violet, but some reds and blues don't make good violets. So this set right here would be a wonderful starter set. This is PWC by Shinhan Art, and that's a great starter set. You don't need to buy 60 colors of watercolor, especially when 40 of them or 43 of them are opaque. So from that, I'm going to turn the camera around and we'll get started on that. But I did want to also let you know one other thing. I'm trying to pound out some videos here and get them under my belt so that I can just gradually edit them and put them out for you. My husband and I met yesterday with a real estate agent, and we have a lot of work to do, a lot of work to do. I thought I had a couple months to get ready for our house to go on the market, but she wants to put our house on the market April 15th. So our goal is tax day. Well, it may not go on the market April 15th, but before the end of April. So we have to be ready by April 15th with my house completely packed up and ready to go. My husband's going to have to paint or hire a painter. He'll probably hire a painter. I used to do all the painting in my house, but since my problems with ankylosing spondylitis got bad, I can't do that. So that's going to really limit what I can post online, and I am going to go through watercolor withdrawal basically. But it was really interesting meeting with this agent. She was talking to me and she saw some old, hideous old artwork of mine on a wall, acrylic paintings, and she said, "Oh, somebody's an artist here." And Pat said, "That's my wife." And I walked in and I said, "What?" And she said, "Oh, you're an artist." And I said, "Yes, I am." But I said, "Oh, this work is horrible." I said, "You'll see my other work upstairs in my studio, but I said, I'm mostly a watercolorist." She said, "Me too." And she said, "Are you a member of the Shelby Township Fine Arts Society?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I've been asked to join and I never did it. And I should have done it. All these years I could have been involved in something great, and I never did it, and now I'm moving away." So she said, "Well, come join us next Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock. And I said, "Well, maybe I will." But my thought is I'm going to be too exhausted to do anything. And, but she wants me to come check it out. So I may do that. We'll see how it goes. But usually if I'm packing by 5 p.m., my back is done and I can't do anything else. And I have to lay down because my back is spasming so bad. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, I just wanted to warn you guys, I have 4 weeks to get my house ready on the market, everything done, everything packed up. My studio, she said, "You got to get all the stuff, the lower stuff off the floor at least, and then just tell them that the doors will be put back on your closet by the time you are ready to move." And my closet, well, it's a mess right now because I've got boxes over there, but this is what I'm talking about. I don't have doors on my closet. I have an art studio video that you can look at. But anyway, so I've got a lot of stuff to pack up. All my books, everything. And this weekend I'm going to be working on my main floor to get that entirely packed up and ready to go. All the pictures, photos, everything off the walls. And hopefully I can scrub. You know how when you leave a photo up or a painting up for a long period of time, you'll get that dust line behind it. I'm hoping that all of those will scrub off and that I can avoid having to paint or having to pay to paint a lot of walls that I really don't want to deal with. So anyway, so that's all I wanted to tell you about. It's coming down to the wire now. My husband's going up north this weekend. I am staying home. This is the first weekend I've been able to stay home. So I'm going to just be busy working here. He said he needs a break from me. So I guess he doesn't like me saying, "We got to get this done. We got to get that done. We got to get this done." That's just the way my mind works. So, and I get a little panicky when things aren't on the time frame. So, I guess he doesn't work like that. But anyway, that's it. Let's turn the camera around and we will get going on this watercolor swatching. Okay, so I've put some little squares out here and I have put black lines across, and we'll see how transparent or opaque these are. Some of these lines aren't real dark, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go ahead, like I said, I'm going to put this in time lapse, and I'm going to be doing these just as they come right out of the package here. Now, all of these watercolors, if you're interested, are 12 mLs, and they show the light fastness, the opacity, and the pigment number right on the top here. So I'm going to go ahead now and we will get started. One thing I found that when I did these swatches, especially with very wet watercolor, which I'm not used to painting with, I put these on fairly heavy, and when you're painting a painting with watercolor, you don't tend to have your paint this thick. So that being said, the vibrancy of these colors decreases considerably when I go ahead and try to do a painting, and you'll see that later on down the road. Now, these are kept thin enough that you're getting the true transparency versus opacity on the colors, but it's just the vibrancy of the color that is being thrown off here. Now, this is very interesting. I was finding some of these were more semi-transparent and than what they were stating on their packaging. But I'm looking at all of this, and they're all saying transparent. Now, on the box, there's a discrepancy, and they only say 2 of them are transparent. And the box says watercolors, not gouache, so I'm not quite sure what's going on here. And many of these are just slightly different pigments, but their titanium white was semi-transparent. It said it was transparent. You want your white to be a little more on the opaque side. Although, you know, some people, if they want to mix with white, that could be something that you'd want transparent. But now this color looks beautiful, this lime color. I'm really interested in this. Oh, that's a gorgeous color. And they say it's transparent. It appears pretty transparent. It might be semi, but it's not bad. And so I'm taking back some of this stuff I said. We'll see what happens at the end here. I'm trying to make these as juicy as possible. You know, using wet paint, you end up with a little more on your brush than you might normally have. I want to see how chalky these dry as well, and see if I like the way they dry. It is called Light Apricot, PW6 and PY42. But even these, ultramarine, transparent, here's 2 semis, 3 semis, 1 opaque, 2 opaques. These were all considered transparent. These were all semi-transparent except for 1 opaque. This one was transparent, semi, and 1 opaque. And then these were opaque, transparent, opaque, transparent, transparent, opaque. So I am quite confused by this finding. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so I've got all the colors down, and some of them in the beginning I probably put on a little bit heavy. I've done this video over a couple of days because I had things going on I had to get to, but I'm going to just take some of these dried colors from my palette now that they're dry and use them a little bit lighter than I would normally, than I did when I did these swatches. And I'm thinking they're going to be more transparent. See, that's already more transparent, I think. So my yellow ochre will probably remain consistently opaque. Whoops, I don't have that dry or wet enough here. Yeah, that's consistently opaque. But I think some of these colors, like this Bordeaux, I don't know if that was considered opaque or if it was considered transparent. I'd have to go back and look, but if I put it down like this, it comes out, it looks pretty transparent. I think It's funny because many of these that said opaque on the box say transparent here. Another factor I want to point out is the discrepancy in the way the color looks from their little tab here to what you see in the tube. I mean, look at the difference here. That's definitely a blue, and this is a lavender. So just so you're aware, when you look at those, they are not going to be what you think you're seeing here. Let me try a couple of these greens again. This one green here that was awfully opaque. I want to see if it's still opaque or if it comes out transparent. Yeah, I think a lot of these are more transparent than I was giving them credit for at first. Sometimes it's hard for me to use wet paint because I'm not used to using wet paint, and that makes me use more of it. I was concerned more about the chalkiness of the paint, so that's why I'm doing this again, because this is the way I would paint with watercolor. I wouldn't put it on as thick as I was putting it on up here. So that being said, well, this I believe is ultramarine, so that's going to come out transparent no matter what, I think. Yeah, that's transparent, definitely. They are fairly vibrant colors. I am pleasantly surprised by the vibrancy of the colors, and that there are more transparent colors than I thought there were in the beginning. So that being said, this would be a good quality student set. Yeah, see, these are coming out more transparent than this up here. So I would go by what the tube says, and I'll bet I could glaze and build up color. Let me try, I'm going to take one of these nice deep reds here, and I'm just going to put a layer down, and it's looking very transparent. I'm going to let it dry, and let's see. One of these colors that say they're transparent, but they're so light. Let's try this one. It said it was transparent. I believe this is jade green. But we'll see what we get. And I'll use this gamboge color. I think this is a gamboge. And I'm going to glaze over all of these. I know the neon pink is definitely, this neon pink over here is definitely a transparent color. Neon usually is. So I'm going to skip that. Let me try another green here. You know, I might recommend these over something like Cotman, but Cotman by Winsor & Newton has a good name for itself, the quality of the paints. These are newer. They do state that they meet ASTM standards for their light fastness. So I think you can trust the little plus signs on here being excellent. All of these say excellent. This one says good. I would assume neon pink would be more fugitive than that. These all say excellent. These all say excellent. I also like how at the top you can just glance at these tubes and right off the bat you see their name, their light fastness, and their transparency and pigment number all right at the top of the tube, which is very, very nice. But now that this is dry over here, I'm going to take a, let's try a different yellow here. This yellow. This looks more like a cadmium color. But I'm going to take that and I'm going to glaze over this. See what happens here. It's working just fine. I'm going to take a, let's see, I'll use another yellow here. We'll use a lemony yellow to go over this green. looks like they do lift. I'm going to see how many of these are really staining. That one stains. That reminds me more of an English red. Let's see this purple, if it's liftable. I got too much water there. That is staining. These blues should be staining. This one especially. This is a Prussian, I believe. And it does stain. How about this? This looks very opaque. I'll bet it lifts. Opaque paints usually will. The reason they're opaque is that they sit on top of the paper more. So I'm also using the Arteza paper as well. Oops, I kind of dragged through that. Now let me take a blue, take a different blue here. I'm going to put it with this green. We're going to darken this green up. So even when glazing, it works very well. Putting an opaque color over it. So if you're getting into watercolor, I always recommend artist quality small palettes to start, not these big, huge palettes. They get you though, because you see all the pretty colors and you just wanna play and have fun with them, and you don't have to mix as many that way and all of that. But I really do feel like using a small artist quality palette is better. Artist quality paints are easier to paint with than your typical student quality paints. But that being said, those of you who are on a tight budget and you want a lot of colors, or like I said, you're a crafter or whatever, go ahead and give this a shot. The light fastness seems to be good. Some of these are very opaque though, so you've got to be careful. Even when I'm lifting, they're still opaque or semi-transparent. This one is completely opaque. This one's completely opaque. So even when I try to lift off paint, you can still see that it took a lot just to get that much of the line to show through. Excuse me. So there you have it. That's those. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a quick painting with these paints. Now this is wet into wet. I've wet the paper here, and I just want you to see when I add this yellow to it, keep an eye on it. Even when I add water over it like that, it is not spreading out. It's staying put. So you don't get great flow with this watercolor. It's something that I noticed when doing a painting. This was the first painting I tried, and it turned out so lousy. I did a second one, and then I did a third one. So I'm going to cut this one out, and I'm going to move on to another painting. Another thing I wanted you to see here is the way the color separates. You'll see more of it on the right-hand side of this stripe than you do on the left-hand side, and I'm having trouble getting it to lay correctly. So I keep going over it, and I kept going over these, and you see the one way over to the right? You can see how I laid the color down, and the initial color was in the center, and I wanted to spread it out a little bit, and it wouldn't spread. It immediately stained and wouldn't allow me to spread that color out, and that was right as I laid it down. It wasn't like it dried and then I tried to go over it. So I'm going to start over now. But all of these things make it really difficult for a beginner, which is why I always suggest artist quality paints. You create so much work for yourself trying to use cheap paint for doing regular painting. That's why I say if you're a crafter and you're just filling in some stamps that you put on a paper or whatever, or you're using them in those adult coloring books, then fine, go for it. But this is not great for painting, I'm sorry to say. One thing I'm already noticing right off the bat is that when I lay paint down, even wet into wet, I don't know if you can see these little lines here. Let me try to zoom way in on this. See those little lines right there? They almost look like bloom lines. The paint does not want to move around. If I leave it like this, I'm going to leave this like this. Now this is all wet. You can see the sheen on it. It's still wet. When I go back in later, before it dries, just seconds later, I find that I get these little bloom marks, like the paint does not want to move. Now for a beginner, see, it did it there. See how it left the lines there? It's just leaving these lines here, and that is not a good sign. I can't even move this paint around. Now granted, it's ultramarine, and ultramarine is staining, but even so, it should, I wet my whole paper and it shouldn't do that. So I would say if you're a beginner painter, this paint is not going to be real conducive to somebody learning. You might find yourself getting aggravated. It was a little frustrating for me even. You guys, this is my third day and my third try trying to paint a painting with these paints. And I'm going to say that using artist quality paint makes your life so much easier. I'm struggling with this stuff. I'm struggling to work with it. It's kind of like working with bad paper. It's the same concept. Working with excellent paints makes a big difference. And when people use this excuse to me about how, well, I can't afford it and I'm just practicing and I go through a lot and da-da-da-da-da. Well, I can understand that a little bit with paper, and you can get around that with paper too. But that's another video. And I tried and tried and tried, and my work comes out looking so elementary looking that I have to keep starting over. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to pick out some colors that I want to use, and they're going to be the basic colors. I'm going to stay away from all this fancy blush this and yeppa-deppa that, I don't know, whatever, apricot this and apricot that and peaches and all of that stuff, and I'm going to stick with their basic colors. I'm going to grab myself some ultramarine blue, sap green, burnt umber, raw umber, deep green. Let's see. I probably need another, like a burnt sienna, a red. Let's see here. But I have to say it's really been, ooh, what's toffee? Now, here I go looking at different colors again. Toffee. Oh, those are real light. Although that is really pretty. I might use that one. There's taupe. Let's see. Wineberry might be a red. I don't know. You can never tell with these. I might use a couple of these fancy looking colors. Sepia would be good. The gray would be good. Although they don't have a Payne's gray. They just have a gray, which is just like a neutral gray. Let's see, phthalo I probably don't need, but I will grab that, and the violet, and I'm just grabbing a bunch of stuff. What's the scarlet red? Maybe crimson's what I need. Scarlet red is pretty bright. I still haven't found my burnt sienna. Holy smokes, how do you look through this many colors? Oh, here it is. The thing is, too, when you look at these colors do not match what's inside the tube at all. See the difference? The other thing is that I've been finding out is that when I'm mixing these colors, so many of them they fade right out to nothingness. And then I end up using so much that it becomes chalky at the end in order to get the vibrancy of color that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try this again. I've got a bunch of colors here. I'm not going to use these all, but I'm going to grab their paper, and I will use a sheet of their paper. And this paper, again, is 100% cotton paper. Now, this might be an affordable cotton paper for you to try. It's 300 GSM, 140 pound. It's nice, heavy, sturdy paper. But I'm going to go ahead and do a simple landscape And I'm going to cut this down to a smaller version so it doesn't take all day. But everything that I tried, I'm going to show you this painting I did. I'm embarrassed to show you guys. The colors are so vibrant, they're not known to nature. So I'm going to have to start mixing a lot more color. But this is what I tried to paint yesterday, and it just did not work out very well. So I'm going to do it again, but I'm also going to have to mix a lot more colors than I normally would have to mix. So this is 12-inch paper. I'm just going to cut it in half here. There we go. And we'll just see what I can come up with. So I'm gonna do this in time lapse, but I will do a voiceover on it. And I may even make this smaller yet. Keep it real small here. That's 9, so 4.5. That's about 4.5, I think. Let's see, 4.5. This is an easy way to cut your paper. You don't even need a paper trimmer. Just do that. It'll give you a little bit of a deckled edge. If you do want to deckle your edges, though, turn your paper over and do it from the back, because then your tear line will look prettier. But I'm just going to use this small little piece of paper, which I just dented. And I'm going to tape it down to a board, and let's get started. You'll see here that I have to keep adjusting my color over and over and over to try to get the color right. I felt like I couldn't get the saturation that I needed, especially in that yellow green that I'm putting in the background. I had to keep going over it, and that time I put it on so heavy it looks like gouache basically. I really struggled. I struggled a lot with this, and I normally wouldn't have if I were using my regular artist quality colors, but I really feel if you're a beginner that using beginner paint is the worst thing. It's the worst disservice that you can do for yourself. Just getting good quality paint and some good quality paper will help you to excel so much quicker. A lot of frustration here. If you see, I put some green down and immediately tried to spread it, and look what happened. It left a line there. If I do this just for a second and lay some color down, and this is real wet, and then I go back and I try to move it around, look how it stays there. It wants to stay there, and I've got a lot of water on my brush, and now I've got a line going like this across that area. And that is paint. That's not a line in the paper. It's very frustrating. This is something that I'm finding with this paint, is that it does not want to spread. And if you don't have it the right consistency, you cannot mix on the paper. I'm used to mixing on the paper. That's what I like to do. I take my green, then I'll take some blue and do this with it. Now look at the blue is stuck. It's just the strangest thing that's going on here. It's frustrating to me. I really can't recommend these paints, and I hate to say it, but you guys, this is not good paint. Not the watercolor. The gouache, on the other hand, I had no problem with. I think that the gouache is fine, but this paint is very subpar in my book. And I'm sorry to say it, Arteza, if you're watching this, but this paint just, there's a lot of problems with it. I can't even get a straight line. I get all these broken edges and crap going on. I'm going to try now and do some of these trees and see if I can get a kind of a take on this. And I have to mix these colors together. It looks like I'm going to need, let me try a little blue in here and see if I can darken this brown. Yeah, that darkens it. There are no dark colors. It's very strange. And my burnt umber and my burnt sienna are so similar in color. I was shocked by that too. They're almost identical, which is very strange. This is really hard to work with. I'll bet I could redo this entire painting in another color. I mean, in my other paints, and it would probably be fine. But I'm going to go ahead and continue on in time lapse, and we'll see what I can do with this. So here's my painting that I finished, and it was very difficult mixing the paint. I get this kind of this grainy texture and colors separating after I mix them together. You can see all these colors that have separated here that were mixed together, and it just makes it more difficult to use these paints. Would I recommend them for a beginner? Absolutely not. And this is why, because they're difficult to work with. I find that I don't get any smoothness. Even when I try to blend color, there's still a line separation here. They're just not great watercolors. So I would not recommend them. But if you have your heart set on them, then you can purchase them at a discount, and I'll have a discount code below. But I would suggest you, instead of getting a trillion of these wild freaking colors that you don't need, and none of them are concentrated enough as it is, why not just get 6 colors, a red, a yellow, a blue, a burnt sienna, maybe a violet, and a Payne's gray or something like that. And you're all set, and you can mix all the colors you need. But this... You don't need all these cloudy looking soft colors that they have here. Yeah, they're pretty colors, and I guess they're okay if you do rubber stamping and you want to color something in. But the color, when you pull the color away, it loses its concentration very quickly. It doesn't want to spread. See how it leaves a line right away? It's hard to get that line to go away. You can see a line there where I tried to blend it. The colors just aren't real strong. Now that's phthalo blue. Why isn't that stronger? I mean, seriously. It's just not that strong. And you guys all know how strong phthalo blue is. Here, I'm going to use it completely concentrated, not mixed. Then I can get the color. But the minute I try to spread it out, it dilutes very quickly. And phthalo blue does not do that. Let me grab my colors. I'll show you the difference here. Phthalo blue. Let me see which one it is. Right next to my ultramarine. Okay. So this is a dried paint. And here it is, an artist quality. Now I'm going to spread it around too with some water. See how much more concentrated that is? See the difference? Wait for it to dry and you'll see a big difference. Let's try my ultramarine. Now these are rock hard. They're not even, I'm just taking a wet brush on a dry palette. And here's my ultramarine blue. And then the ultramarine blue here, I'm out because I used it all up. Just get a little dot. I need to get rid of all this color too. Let me get rid of it on my palette so that I can mix here. There we go. I took the whole dot. Look at the change in concentration. Do you see the difference here? Let's see. What else can I use? Here's some of their sap green. Completely concentrated. There's completely concentrated. Now I'm going to try and spread it out. Okay, now if I take my sap green, which is dry in my palette, look at that. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And there's still more room to take that color further. If I do that with this, it washes it out. See that? So there's a huge difference in the concentration of color here. My phthalo, their phthalo. My ultramarine, their ultramarine. Their sap, my sap. You see what I'm talking about? So it makes it very difficult to work with. But I did my best, and in the end, I actually tried to use it as gouache and put it on like thick. And I was getting like texture because it was sitting on top of the paper. It was crazy. But there you go. There you have it. That's my take on the Arteza paints. And I'll dry these real quick so you can see what they do here. I think I'll just get a piece of paper and quickly show you the difference of some of these colors on paper so that you can see the difference between a student quality paint and a paint that is an artist quality. Okay, here's their sap green, full strength. Rinse my brush, dab it off, and pull the color down. Here's my sap green. I'm just going to do a few colors. Rinse my brush. Let's see. How about some... Oh, I got that new sepia from PWC. We'll use that. I'm going to use the sepia here. Whoops. Now see, that came out thick because I put the whole thing on the paper and I shouldn't have. There's their sepia, and it leaves that mark. And then here's the sepia from, actually, it's not PWC. What was that? This is, I forget what brand this is. I got it from Doodle and Sketch the other day. That's that sepia. I'm going to look and see what brand that is. That is Mission Gold. Now, I'll do this with a few of the primary colors real quick, and then I'll go over them with you. Okay, and trying to be as fair as absolutely possible, getting the same amount of pigment on each. I actually worked in Arteza's favor because I was using wet paint and I was using big amounts on the brush to the point where I had to thin them out with water because they were just like putting oil paint down. I mean, I had the thick paint on my brush, which you don't do with watercolor. So, and then on my palette, my watercolor palette here is completely dry. So, and I did not wet it with water. I just wet my brush and went over the paint to reconstitute it. So you can see here the differences in color. My sap green was a little bit weaker when I put it down. It's a lot stronger than that. If I put down sap green like I normally could get out of this color, you'll see that I can get it very dark, and I just didn't put it down concentrated enough. But that's their sap green. This is a more natural looking green than this green. This green looks a lot more like my Hooker's, but if I take Hooker's green, that green is not a green that I would use often, but this is how strong that is. It's a strong green in comparison to that. Now, this was their burnt sienna. Look at the line that it left. That was total paint And then this was mine. This was their phthalo blue. This is my phthalo blue. You can see the difference in concentration, and I added water to it, which is why it kind of had this faded look. Burnt sienna. This is their burnt sienna compared to mine. Their yellow compared to my, this was a yellow orange, and this is my new gamboge. This is burnt umber, burnt umber. That one was pretty strong, but putting it down on the paper, I put it down pretty darn thick. This is their Viridian green and mine. My violet, their violet. Their Arteza's crimson. This is my alizarin crimson. They're both alizarin crimson. Mine's permanent. Theirs is not, I don't believe. This is their orange. I forget the name of it. And then my orange. So you can see the differences in how strong the pigments are. And then working with them, I had great difficulty. I get a lot of this feathering look. I don't get it fading out like it normally would. There is some granulation with it, which is nice. This paint that I put on the edge of my trees to give it some highlight is a transparent paint, but you can see that it's opaque. So anyway, do with it what you will. I just wanted to show you the differences in the paints so that you can see the differences in the strength of the paints. These paints are very weak, and when I tried to paint with them like I would coming out of my own palette, it's hard to keep the strength because it wants to dry and fade. And that's a problem. I'm not sure what color this is, but it fades right down. So just be aware of that. If you're trying to get more bang for your buck, you're better off getting a small set of professional colors that are going to last you a long time than to buy 60 colors that you're going to go through like crazy. I would be frustrated if they were dry and in wells or a palette or in pans, because they would be difficult to get the vibrancy that you might want with some colors. I avoided black on purpose, but I put full strength phthalo blue down to get this tree dark. This was full strength violet over the green, and then I used the yellow orange in the leaves and that kind of thing. So anyway, you get an idea for them. So I hope this was helpful. Again, the coupon code is down below if you do want to buy these paints. And everybody remember, be courageous, paint with wild abandon, and most of all, be kind to each other. Take care.